Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 12, Episode 80. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us here for this Friday show, Dave. Divisional weekend coming up here for the NFL. Obviously, Pittsburgh not part of that. I did see, not to start this podcast on a very somber note, but I did want to at least take a moment here. Someone that I think you were a big fan of, Meatloaf, passing away today at the age of 74. I'm not as familiar with Meatloaf as I'm sure you are, but been some very sad news to start 2022, Dave.
Yeah, it really has. You know, you look back at just some of the passing, people passing in my kind of generation, people that I kind of, the realization hit a while ago that I've gotten old, and people that were kind of, that I listened to or watched or those kind of things just seem to be dropping off. Eddie Van Halen, last year, and now Meatloaf, and boy, you want to talk about 70s iconic, rock and roll, cruise around, on a Saturday night, rock and roll, that was Meatloaf. I can remember kind of growing up, Meatloaf being played in the house, not as much as maybe some Elvis or some CCR or something, Creedence Clearwater Revival stuff, but definitely remember that. I remember my uncle being heavily into Meatloaf, and I could just remember at an early age, riding around with my uncle, and he had an old Chevy Vega that he had hopped up and redone and all like that, and had an 8-track player in it. Alex, I'm gonna have to school you on what eight tracks used to be, and people actually used to have 8-track players in their car, kind of before there were cassette players and all like that. And Bat Out of Hell, what an album, and Meatloaf collaborated with the great and now unfortunately late Jim Steinham on that. And I just, some of that songwriting, especially a couple of those albums from Meatloaf, just absolutely kind of theatrical, classic rock, if you will. So yeah, Meatloaf was a huge baseball fan too.
I did not know that.
Yeah, and not only was he a huge baseball fan, he was huge into the rotisserie fantasy baseball as well too. I mean, a huge baseball nerd.
Was he a fan of a team, or was he just a general baseball fan?
I don't remember specifically team, but I just know over the years, finding out, just reading several articles on Meatloaf, and what a huge baseball and fantasy baseball rotisserie nerd he was over the years and all like that. So super sad. He's now reunited with the great Jim Steinman, guy who wrote a lot of those songs off of Bat Out of Hell. But you can bet that tonight I'll be putting Bat Out of Hell on tonight, turning all the lights out, maybe turning on some Steelers All 22 film, and just kind of decompressing a little bit there. So yeah, sad day. I was surprised to see that this morning.
For sure. And so I open up the podcast that way because the Steelers news is a little bit slower. And so I'm selling this podcast really well to start today's show. So hopefully you guys stick with us, though, because there are still things to talk about here, including some player interviews. Plenty of players have spoken over the last couple of days on Zoom calls. And I don't know if there are any more coming. I don't believe there are any more today. But to some Steelers news and housekeeping here, Pittsburgh has continued to kind of build out its offseason roster. They signed a slew of players to reserve future contracts earlier in the week, which we talked about. They signed a couple more since we last spoke. They signed cornerback Isaiah Johnson and wide receiver Steven Sims to reserve future contracts. Also did a 1-year deal with Christian Kuntz, who was slated to be a restricted free agent, the team's long snapper. Exclusive rights. Sorry, yeah. Exclusive rights free agent. A 1-year deal for him, this team's long snapper. This year he beat out Cameron Canaday this summer. And so Kuntz looking to be the long snapper heading into 2022.
Yeah, nothing overly surprising there. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of these like exclusive and restricted free agents. I think there's like six, or we're scheduled to be six in total here coming out of the regular season here. So we'll hit on a couple of those guys later in the show here. But with exclusive rights free agents, they don't have a choice. So,
right.
Especially a guy like Kuntz, who, I mean, you're already a specialized position as it is there. You don't have any leverage whatsoever. If they throw that tender at you, you better get that thing signed real quick and back up to the front office just in case something gets lost on the way back up the stairs or something, so to speak. There, so not surprisingly, I don't think you're surprised by the couple additional features that they added. Sims obviously was on the practice squad for I think most of the season there, if not all of the season, pretty damn close to all of the season there. And then the other defensive back was one that they had brought in. I think he was on the roster for about on a practice squad for about a week or so during some of the COVID issues.
Yeah, that was like when Lyndon Stevens went on COVID, I want to say.
Right. I think we even said, don't be surprised if some of these guys maybe circle back as futures guys here. And I think that's what you're seeing here. The good news is that I think we've got a rule of 51 to work with now, and I'll be going over that and having some specialized post on that, salary cap updates on into the weekend here. So my first goal was to knock out these free agent primers that I do every year. I've already got the exclusive rights ones done. I've got the restricted article up, and I think here in a little bit on SteelersDepot.com, the defensive unrestricted free agents will land that article today, and then that'll be followed on Saturday by the offensive unrestricted free agents, and that should give everybody a good overview of what maybe to expect with several of these free agents there. So I think that's got a lot of the kind of housekeeping out of the way. And like I said, we'll talk more about the exclusive and restricted guys later on in this show.
And by the time people are listening to today's episode, the unrestricted one will be up on Steelers Depot, sticky to the top of the page. So you can check that out and get the detailed list of the unrestricted free agents to be for the Steelers. Before we do that, though, Dave, as I mentioned a moment ago, several players speaking over the last couple of days, including Mason Rudolph and Dwayne Haskins, Ahkello Witherspoon, Isaiahh Loudermilk. And so we'll start with the quarterbacks because they always bring the most intrigue and the biggest headlines. And not that Mason Rudolph nor Dwayne Haskins said anything groundbreaking or were told anything groundbreaking. Both basically saying is that they're going to have a chance to come in and compete for the job, and they're going to work hard to try to win that job. And so it's not anything unexpected from either of those guys, but both guys obviously competitive and want to be the starting quarterback in 2022.
Yeah, and look, I think a lot of the quotes from Mason Rudolph are going to be the ones that most people look at and circle and point at, and those guys. I don't envy that guy one bit. Coming in on obviously has not been an overly fan favorite since he arrived. I don't think him and Ben Roethlisberger were on each other's Christmas card mailing list, if you will. This guy now is saddled with being, oh Lord, here comes that, the first quarterback of what could be a very trying time for Steeler fans when it comes to the quarterback position here. The guy is very confident, though. I don't think a lot phases Mason Rudolph, but I think a lot of things, whether you like a person or don't like a person, really plays a large part into how things that come out of your mouth will be contextualized or by people, and what kind of narrative might be kind of stamped to it. Here's my takeaway on Mason Rudolph and of what he said, and it's just he's a highly competitive guy. He's a very confident guy. He looks forward to being finally given the opportunity to not be in the direct shadow of one Ben Roethlisberger, and he's going to give it everything he can to compete for the job. And it does feel like he was having to be very cautious not to step on, the leadership, toes of one Ben Roethlisberger. And, he probably had to keep a lot of things himself, muted along the way, and there were some comments that would lead you to believe that a lot of what they did offensively week in and week out was a highly tailored to what maybe Ben wanted to do. You and I even talked about that, I think, on even some previous shows, how much of what the Steelers offense was, or Matt Canada called, was highly tailored or suggested by, one Ben Roethlisberger. So once again, I think a lot of Mason's not going to be a fan favorite. He's going to, if indeed he winds up being the week 1 quarterback for the Steelers in 2022, every little thing will be magnified that he does. Is it a high chance that this guy's the quarterback for the Steelers next 2 or 3 years? No. Is there a chance, though, that he might be the week 1 starting quarterback? Possibly. And what he does with that, if given the opportunity, will decide the rest of his NFL future. And I think just the takeaway overall on both the quarterbacks, or both Haskins and Mason Rudolph, is that I don't feel either have the full stamp of approval of one of these two guys is going to be the guy. It's more of along the lines of both these guys are going to get an opportunity to further show maybe that they could potentially be the guy. And that's a tough situation for both those guys to be in right now, and they both have a lot to prove.
Mm-hmm. Sure. I think obviously they're saying all the right things about the future, so that doesn't interest me too terribly much. They both, say they want to lead and be competitive and things like that. I'm more interested in the things about what has happened. And to your point, you mentioned Rudolph saying that he feels like he can kind of be the leader of this team now, doesn't have to worry about, stepping on Ben's toes was his actual phrase. And he was always kind of in that shadow. It's hard to lead and really be truly yourself when you're the backup, and in front of you is not just any quarterback, but a first ballot Hall of Famer who's been there since you were 12 years old. Whatever the age number is there for Rudolph, coming out of being much younger than Ben. So I think
everything will be circled back. That will be that's a huge shadow.
Yeah.
And on top of just he just doesn't seem to be very liked by the fan base in general. So now trying to step into those shoes, you want to talk about, and I think he does probably a pretty good job overall of not listening to some of that stuff, but how can you not feel that, it might be better for him to come out, depending on how the rest of this offseason goes, come out and say, look, I'm not Ben Roethlisberger. I'm not going to be Ben Roethlisberger. I'm trying to be my own guy here. Even that might be taken out of context to some degree there, but it's incredibly, I don't envy him at all to be that next, that first quarterback post Ben Roethlisberger era. Somebody had to be that guy, right? But it's him, and it'll be interesting to see how he navigates through this.
Yeah, they're big shoes to fill. But then furthering that point about kind of the past, Rudolph had some interesting comments that you kind of touched on about Canada's offense and working with Ben. And I'll just read a couple of them off to you. Saying that, quote, I think not being an 18-year established quarterback, I'm not going to have the luxury of saying, hey, these are some of the concepts I like. I want them to be called. You don't have that much pull as you have an established quarterback. I'm going to fully surrender to what Matt Canada wants to do and do the best job possible. Maybe laying it on a little thick there, I think, to be honest, with this fully surrender stuff there. But and then he just, Rudolph continued to talk about how this year was kind of meshing what Canada wants to do versus what Ben is comfortable with. And I think you're kind of hinting at some of the, we talk about that Canada couldn't fully run his offense. I think the mobility aspect is one part of it, but I think people get too focused on that as if it was the only part of Canada's offense. And just conceptually and schematically and how you coach things up and teach some of these quarterbacks, it's probably more difficult for Canada to do some of those things with an established guy like Ben versus a younger, newer guy like Rudolph or Haskins or whatever quarterback comes in the picture. So I thought some of Rudolph's quotes about those things were pretty enlightening, although not terribly surprising.
Yeah, but I'm not surprised by him either, because I really do think over the last however many 4 or 5 years that Ben's really had a heavy hand. And look, I mean, he's a Hall of Fame quarterback. He should have a lot to say of what happens offensively there. But, the transitioning from the Randy Fichtner to the Matt Canada, I don't know if we saw all that too much different of stuff, right? Especially in this first year. I don't think Ben's a big fan of all this new shifting and motion and all like that. So I think that might have got tamped down a little bit this past year to some degree. And who knows what else? Obviously we've talked about some of the boot action and that kind of stuff. And look, I mean, Ben's inability to be able to push the football down the field these last several years obviously impacts as well too. So there is a message within what Rudolph had to say that some will either. It'd be fun to see how people run different directions with that. But I think the real underlying truth is kind of just what Mason said at its core, is that there were certain concepts, things that Ben really pretty much insisted that be in the offense that might not be in there heavily if Canada had his way to do 100% what he wants to. And the whole surrender part, I mean, that's probably laying it on a little bit thick there. Sound like a cheap trick song there, surrender, but that Mason's not the best with words, I don't think, in his press conferences. And he doesn't, to me, the less that he says moving forward, probably the better for him in these for a while. But it's out there now, and it's obviously going to get discussed. But I think there is some truth to what he said about, going to be interesting to see, in so many words, going to be interesting to see what maybe a real Matt Canada offense looks like. If indeed he stays.
Right. And obviously any OC or any good one is working with what their quarterback is comfortable with and likes. And so that's not going to be necessarily different, philosophically. I say that, I didn't say that word right, but the philosophy of it's not gonna change at all. But I was going back through some old Matt Canada clinic tape last night, and there was stuff on reading the safety and coverages and stuff. You're not going to Ben saying, "Okay, Ben, when the safety does this," Ben's been down that road before. You kind of let him do his own thing and trust his decision making. And so I think just some of those elements will be different with a newer, younger quarterback, be it Rudolph or Haskins or whoever's running the show week 1 next year.
Yeah, look, I mean, we could potentially see more levels type concepts, more flood type stuff with a quarterback moving to one side or the other to help help this offense some, and obviously the ability maybe to push the football down the football field a little more. I mean, these passing charts have been the last couple of years. And I understand, as Mike Tomlin would like to say, it's more of a horizontal game now. But man, you just look at these teams that are still in the playoffs. You have got to be able to throw the football down the field to get some respect from some of these safeties and to clear people out of the box and not have these linebackers sit as much on underneath and potential runs and those kind of things. So And as we talked the other day, teams weren't game planning. Say, you know what? Watch out for Ben Roethlisberger to take off with his football. Even if he does in man coverage, what is he going to get? 5 yards down the field before you get to him, kind of those things. So I do think that a lot of what Mason said is a lot of the reason why we're going to probably see Matt Canada at least get one more year with this thing.
Yeah, no, I think so too. That again, we talk about Canada not fully running his offense. You point back to those Rudolph comments, and it goes beyond the mobility factor, but that is a factor. And hopefully, you can run a little bit more with the boots and the rollouts and run those more successfully in 2022.
Look, put the blame wherever you want, Ben. And percentages wherever you want to put them. Personnel. Offensive coordinator, play calling, Ben, whatever. It was awful, man.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was a new level of awful because obviously the previous season wasn't great either. But I mean, you had even a lower average per play this year on top of it. And then not only that, you had your quarterback getting hit even more this year, I think, than you did the previous year. Your running game never materialized. Your explosive plays were, I think, 51 in total, 50 during the regular season. The way this offense come out in the first half, and as we mentioned, the final 8 games, 1 offensive possession, first half possession ended up in a touchdown. I think you even extrapolated some other stuff out, didn't you? Statistically, with what this offense was like first quarter or something like that.
Well, I had this. The last 9 first quarters, they scored 9 points, fewest in football by far. On first down this year, total on all first downs, they averaged 4.1 yards per play. That was dead last in football by a fairly wide margin. And then the stat I had yesterday that kind of talks about your point about dink and dunk, and none of this is surprising information. It just kind of adds detail to it. There have been 76 times in NFL history where a quarterback has completed at least 380 passes in a season. Among that group, the 2 lowest passing yard seasons are been the last 2 years, 37-40 in 2021, 38-03 in 2020. Only one other quarterback has ever been under 4,000 yards, and that was Sam Bradford, I believe. And so, it just kind of really shows the volume of passes, but how low that, the efficiency there is. And Ben's yards per attempt is the lowest of any quarterback with that many completions, about 6.2, I think. Over the first, even the last 3 games specifically, his yards per attempt went from about 6.6, I think it was, for the first 15, 16 weeks to 4.3 over these last couple of weeks, since the Chiefs game, I believe, in week 16, or the Browns game in week 17, starting since then. So even these last 3 games, including the playoff game, you saw somehow this offense take a dip in terms of the yards per attempt, which you didn't think was even possible. But they really just became incredibly inefficient in the Browns, the Ravens, in the wild card game.
And look, it would have been a little better had you had some semblance of a running game, I think. But
even that Browns game, you had it in the Browns game, and I mean, Ben, I think, had like 2.4 yards per attempt in that game.
Right, and what's been the common denominator in the last 2 years with 2 different offense coordinators?
The quarterback.
So, look, his game obviously had to change. I mean, here's the thing. The further we get away from this, the more we'll see more of the clips of older Ben than we will the most recent clips, because the most recent clips of Ben are obviously not the most flattering of clips. What's going to put Ben Roethlisberger in the Hall of Fame is that ability to extend the play, to be able to throw the football down the field, those kind of things there. And once he lost the ability to have that kind of extend the play and mobility, that really impacted his game, and he had to become more of a different player. And I think initially that went okay in kind of those earlier Todd Haley years, right? And you had a much better offensive line. You still had a guy in there, and Antonio Brown, that could, do a lot after the catch as well too. I mean, this team's absolutely horrible after the catch right now. On top of it, so not only do you have a quarterback throwing short, you don't have people on the back end getting the yak, and you had Juju go down. 5 games into the season here, and that was a guy that you could really count on a lot of that hidden yardage yak on third down. The guy that you throw short and change that got you that first down. So, I mean, it was quite ugly to watch these last 2 years for sure.
Yeah, I mean, Deontay got a lot of yak, but it's hard to ask, your yak to be 40-yard chunk plays. There's just no equivalent. Mike Tomlin's talked about this repeatedly. There is no, his phrase is, chunk plays really mitigate a lot of execution. He says it better than I just did. But, I mean, the point is that chunk plays really kind of just are so impactful and kind of take out those 10 to 12 point drives. Yeah.
hugely. I mean, I know people hate, with all the, and I love all the new analytics. I absolutely love them, but you keep going back to some key analytics in games, man. The talk stat, turnovers and explosive plays, man. You want to boil down just the easiness and simplify the game, explosive plays and turnovers, because you have those couple of things in there, you're going to win a lot of football games if you win that talk stat, plain and simple. And the whole, it just keeps playing back through my head last year. Randy Fiedler saying, catch short, run long, catch short, run long. Well, I mean, that's nice to some degree. You need some of that during the season. Yes, you're going to get some explosive plays off of some quick slants that go for 1 yard passes, 19 or more yards, or dump offs to running backs, those kind of things. But still, you've got to be able to register 2-3 of those a game down the football field on average. And this offense just has not been able to do that. I mean, look, 2019, Ben was hurt. 2020, they obviously didn't have it, 2021. So until this team is able to do that, then you're probably not going to have the running game succeed. Yeah, right. On top of it, because one will definitely benefit from the other.
You just need to diversify your offense because they hit some of those slants. I mean, Deontay took some of those slants and ran long to beat the Browns in week 6 or whatever week that was, 15-10. I mean, that was, a huge play. And they've gotten that this year, but you just can't. That can't be the only thing you do as an offense. There has to be diversification and ability to win in different ways and beat different game plans. And one thing's not working in one game for whatever reason, you can fall back on something else. And it just goes back to the word limited. This offense has been extremely limited the last 2 years. It's been a small menu of things that have worked. When it has worked, you've gotten some results, but when it hasn't worked, it looks ugly in a hurry.
Here's something I had written down to talk about at the top of the show that I wanted to spring on you, so you wouldn't have time to think about it here ahead of time in our pre-production meeting.
That was a 2-hour pre-production meeting, and you're throwing new stuff at me, Dave.
We both were on the money about how many wins this team would have, right?
Yeah, we were both 9-8. We were both 9-8, right?
Right. I had them 9-8, and I had them making the playoffs, winning the North. But just as a whole of how many games we thought this team might win out of the chute, we were on the money there. Now, throw that out. Was this team as good as what you thought they would be as a 9-8 team? That's question number one.
Short answer, no. I thought they would be better. The fact that they won 9 games in itself, based on the current team, is almost a minor miracle because they were so bad in so many respects.
It really is. Go ahead.
Yeah, because they're, I had to tweet about this the other day. They were 21st in points scored, 20th in points allowed. They were the 32nd ranked run defense. The red zone offense wasn't efficient. They didn't create big plays. I mean, all the stats you can go down, the injuries and stuff like that. You kind of wonder, how did this team even get 9 wins this year? But the biggest thing is they were, I think, 8? I forget the stat. 8-2-1 or 8-1-1 in one possession game. So they just found ways to win those close games.
How would you? I mean, it to me, and I mentioned it several times in some terrible takes, and I think on the podcast as well too. That it all along, man, it felt very smoke and mirrors like, that it's so hard to believe. Sometimes they were winning some games, being minus in the talk stat. Just very.
How many games did they win the talk stat this year? You probably don't have the answer to that offhand, but I'd be very curious to know. It can't be many where they won the talk stat.
To win it by 2+, probably not many at all. I don't have that in front of me, but maybe I'll play around later on tonight while I'm throwing on some Meatloaf, Bat Out of Hell. Jot some of that stuff down there when I get into another world here, but. Here's the other thing. How would you what is the best reason why, if you had to give like the top 2 or 3 reasons why this team was able to win 9 games and get into the playoffs? Obviously, to get into playoff aspect, I mean, you still have to do your part. At no point should a team apologize for being in the playoffs?
No.
Okay. All right. So let's throw that aspect out. So what are maybe the top 3 reasons why this team did win 9 games then?
Well, like I said, the fact that they won those one possession games, they won close, although that kind of just answers the question with the same question. They won games because they won games. In terms of specifically what they did, Chris Boswell was fantastic. So you got some 50-yard field goals that were huge and boosted this offense to win some of those close, low-scoring affairs. They did have a top red zone defense. I think it was like the number 5 red zone defense, and so that was important about keeping scores down. And they got a lot of pressure, and they did force more takeaways at the end of the season in some of those critical games. They really didn't force a lot of turnovers the first, 10 weeks of the season, and they kind of picked it up a bit towards the end. And so that was kind of crucial to kind of win some of those AFC North games, week 17, week 18, down the stretch.
If I said, give me the top 5 people in the Steelers' entire organization, player, coach, whatever, that would have the biggest credit for the Steelers getting 9 wins in 2021, what would that list look like?
Well, I would put one coach on there, Mike Tomlin, not to celebrate this season too much, but he is a guy that guys fight and compete, and he kind of has that attitude of we're always in it and never give up, never say die. I think there's something to be said for that from a culture aspect. So Tomlin, and then 4 players, I'd go Watt, Hayward, Minka, so just the stars defensively, and then I'd probably say it's either Deontay or Najee Harris. I'll say Najee Harris just because of that Week 17 game against the Browns where he just had a fantastic showing, ran for $188. So to recap, Hayward, Watt, Minka, Harris, and Tomlin.
So Ben wouldn't make that list then, huh?
No, I mean
Ben would make my list of top 5. Tomlin would be on there. Watt obviously would be on there. I like you talking about Boswell there. That's very underrated. And I until you brought that up, I'm not sure he would have been on my list. But I mean, you made a great point in there about, man, that guy kept him, kept him in definitely in some games, at least competing one possession type, situations because of some of those. So,
and how many 50-yarders at Heinz Field did he hit? Because he's like the only kicker that can do that as reliably as he's done.
Man, I've said it several times. I worried about that guy after that one season.
Sure,
I worried about him bad. I wasn't sure he should be the Steelers kicker anymore. Because
8 of 9 on 50+ yard field goals this year for Boswell. 8 of 9, incredible.
So I think my list would be. I think Tomlin's on it, and I don't know how Tomlin's not number 1 on the list, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people probably rolling their eyes thinking, but I don't know how this team got what it got out of them this year. I think Ben's on that list. A couple of those come behind, victories and all, just, the old gunslinger out there getting it done at the end of games there. I think Boswell's on that list. Watt obviously high on that list because they don't win a couple of them games. That guy don't make a couple of them plays in there. And
so you got Boss, Tomlin, Watt, Ben. You got one more.
Yeah, I mean, oh Lord, I don't know what way. I think. I mean, what was Hayward? Hayward was great, but was he that impactful?
I mean, I'll let you decide, I guess, who you want to be on that last one. But yeah, I would say yes.
I would be more apt to maybe, I don't know, Deontay delivered some big plays in some key moments. I'd be more apt to maybe put one more offensive player in there. And, obviously Minka, all those tackles that he registered, last line of defense, maybe he saved a couple of touchdowns in there that were possibly meaningful. Let me give a code number 5 then to Minka. Minka slash Deontay.
Making me do 5 and you get all these code. Yeah. I guess I'm a little recency biased because I think about just how they won those last 2 games. And I thought Minka was so important. Those last 2 games, Harris really important in that Week 17 game. So I'm probably a little biased here and just looking at it in terms of like those final 2 games. But
I'm not trying to take anything away from Hayward either, because I mean that guy had a great season and all like that. But I'm surprised you'd leave Ben off the list, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think because I was thinking about it from the scope really of how they kind of got in the playoffs in those last couple of weeks, and Ben was not very good in those really last 3-4 games of his career. But yeah, obviously there were times earlier in the year where he was like willing this team for sure, and so I mean you can put Bet on there, and that's fine.
And I don't know if there's such an animal as disappointing 9-win season, but it's not the team that I envisioned them getting those 9 wins. If you would have showed me all that tape first and then asked me, and I not be able to see scoreboard or anything, or see what the other team did, those kind of things in it, I would have told you there's no way that looking at all that tape that team won 9 wins, won 9 ball games.
But the divisional games, because they won 4-2 in the North this year, right? They swept the Ravens and the Browns, and they got swept by the Bengals.
Yeah,
it was a very weird year in the North.
And don't discount the importance of that moving forward.
Yeah,
don't discount. We talk about it every year how hugely important it is. Look, the path to the playoffs can really go right through your own division, obviously, because if you win the division, you're in, whether it's 9 wins or 8 wins. If you win it, you're in that way. But, let that be a lesson that, I mean, it once again, it's a Captain Obvious statement. You better take care of business in your own division first and foremost if you want to have any aspirations of making the playoffs and going deep into playoffs.
Yeah, and I know we kind of think about each year kind of like going to split every single game in the North, so kind of put your 3-3, so it'll be 4-2 in the North. If you're above 500 in your own division, then that's a really big factor in you making that playoff push.
I mean, I don't want to say that Tomlin got this team to overachieve, but to some degree, I think they did.
Yeah, again, I don't think this was the fact they won 9 games still kind of blows my mind a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm not advocating throwing, everybody taking off today and getting a parade together by no necessary, not at all. But
right.
Anyway, that was just been on my head. How would you best sum up this 2021 season if 20 years from now, a kid wants to know, or your kid, young Trevor Kozora wants to know, Daddy, tell me about the Daddy, tell me about the 2021 Steelers.
Say, son, go ask your mom. That's what I'm saying. I'm watching tape. No, I'll be a horrible father. It was just it was a slog. It was just really a grindy, ugly, you did it kind of year. I don't know I think it's the best way to describe it. Just an ugly slog, but you found a way to win.
Okay. All right. I wanted to get that out of the way there with the season still kind of fresh on our mind there.
Yeah. I know we had a conversation in our pre-production meeting. What are we going to talk about? How are we going to fill the time? We're doing a good job. We always find a way. We're
leave it to Uncle Dave. Leave it to Uncle Dave. You have some stories for that. For young Trevor Kozora about Uncle Dave down the road.
Yeah, I guess I do. Some other players speaking to the media, and it's always interesting. Actually, you had an interesting article on Ahkello Witherspoon and his looming free agency. We've talked so much about, the odds and the market for potentially re-signing him. Of course, Witherspoon would want to come back to Pittsburgh, and he did tell the media he was happy with his time, found the stability, liked Pittsburgh's system and scheme, but said, he's not going to, in so many words, said, I'm not going to lock myself into one option and just assume that I'm the smartest guy in the room. Basically saying, went to Seattle, thought he'd be good there. He thought a great fit, and you realized how wrong he was with that fit there in Seattle. Obviously, he got traded to Pittsburgh at the end of the summer. So I think he'll probably be a bit more careful and patient with his decision this time, it sounds like.
And, I got to be honest with you, and I know a lot of people have him circled right now and say there's absolutely no way that they can let this guy get away. And to some degree, I agree with that because, look, we know how hard it is not only to find, corners in the NFL through the draft, but the Steelers in particular over the years just don't have a great track record. A lot of their better corners are coming in, after the fact there. Now, obviously you got a guy in Cameron Sutton that's still, starter on this team and all like that, and all, but you've had a lot of them wash out, just like a lot of teams around the NFL do and all. But the thing with him, man, we don't got a small sample size with him still on the games. I thought he was a lot better in coverage than his his warts are always going to be his warts, right? And that's playing the run and tackling. Those aren't now at this point, I'm convinced those aren't going away.
Sure. It's just a matter of, can you live with that? Can you scheme around that? Do the pros outweigh the cons? And, just how bad is that tackling run defense? It's not good, but it's not, Asante Samuel, Deion Sanders can't tackle to save your life. No 1-2. I mean, there is some 1-2 there. So I think it's,
but there are some business
serviceable
decisions in his tape.
I don't know if it's a business decision. I just think he's technically not sound, and he's not a particularly strong guy.
He's not going to give you some of those out on the edge, Joe Hayden, lower the shoulders, set the edge type plays either. No,
but it's not horrible. I mean, I've seen worse from a corner. And he was really bad coming out, and he's improved a lot from his Colorado days.
It's not Gerard Holloman. Ding! We ought to have a bell like Dan Patrick's show. When everybody you want to talk about good right? I don't listen to him enough, but Dan Patrick really does have a great show. Every time somebody calls in, Doug gives a height weight to hit that bell. We need like a Gerard Holloman bell to ding every time we get to mention.
Holloman needs one in his house. Another check coming in. Ding! Oh, I guess I'm getting paid. Someone's talking about me.
Some royalties there. No, he's not Gerard Holloman when it comes to that aspect, but. I'm also now firmly in the camp that none of that's getting better, right? So you better be comfortable with dealing with what he is in that aspect there. And I think we need to see a little bit more tape on him and some man coverage as well too. Especially having to follow follow people across the field and all like that. Now, all that said, let's look at kind of what he said the other day. And look, this guy got a $4 million bite of the apple last year, right? And that apple probably tasted pretty good at that amount. Now, it wasn't looking good for him halfway through the season. He couldn't even get on the field, dress one game out of the first 8 or 9 there. We knew why, not enough special teams helmets to go around for a guy like that. But once he got on the field and you got to see more of above, how he could maybe fit and help you on defensive side of football. They couldn't take the helmet away from him at that point. Mike Tomlin said as much, there, once he got on the field, and showed that he caught the moving train, yada, yada. In so many words, we couldn't take the helmet away from him. And that's what happened there. Heck, he went on to, who had Ahkello Witherspoon leading this team in interceptions at the beginning of the year?
No one.
Nobody. So should you make if I'm him right now, man, when we get to that legal tampering period, I think he's going to find out real quick what his value is and isn't. And after the way the things that transpired with him in Seattle, he probably thought, well, okay, $4 million. I'm going to be a starter here in Seattle. Onward we go. And that changed super quick on him. And I think he just came to the realization last season that anything can happen in the NFL. And the team that you might sign with might not be the team that you end up with, and the team that you get traded to might not play you 9 weeks into the season either. So I guess what I'm getting at here is, and he said as much, he's not going to be in a hurry here, I don't think, to make a decision. And already you go into every offseason with just a handful of corners that you have the haves and the have-nots, right? Particularly when it comes to that position in free agency there. I think the Steelers would really have to tickle his fancy with some guaranteed money to get him to sign before the tampering period starts, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And I read part of the quote here. He said, I think just going where you're wanted is an absolute must. And that was Seattle at a time last year. And then that changed. I'm just very comfortable and I'm prepared to play football anywhere, really. And now he did talk up. He liked Pittsburgh's scheme. He said in Seattle it was a lot of cover 3. He was kind of doing the same stuff over and over. In Pittsburgh, it's more varied and diversified. And so there's an excitement about and challenge of that he spoke highly of. But you're right. I think he wants to be more careful about this decision, considering what he went through last year, signing with Seattle, realizing it's not a great fit, gets traded. And that's a difficult process professionally and personally. So I think he just wants to be very careful and patient and make the best decision possible for himself.
Right. And look, I mean, there's no doubt about it. He ended the season trending in the right direction for sure. And when you're coming up on free agency and being a young guy such as him, I mean, that's kind of the best of both worlds, especially at a position too, where, a lot of people like those cornerbacks that can take footballs away from people. Right. So, he's extremely hard to put a value on, I think, right now.
Yeah, I think we had that discussion the other day for sure. It's just he's always been
he's worth more than $4 million, right?
Yeah. No, we were talking about 6-7 million. That's probably the number we're gonna kind of presume heading into the offseason. But he's just been a guy that's been very hot and cold in his career with the 49ers, and Seattle really never got hot, but there was some intrigue when he first signed. So you just want to be careful about that because he's hot right now, but is he going to be cold again, or is he going to be able to kind of even his play out? There's some uncertainty there. Let
me tell you the kind of stuff that I strap on the tinfoil helmet, and I look too much at maybe sometimes and wonder too much about at this point. I mean, I think we both agree that the chances of Joe Hayden returning are probably slim, right? It's probably either going to be a Joe Hayden return or an Ahkello Witherspoon re-signing. Would you kind of agree at least with that at the core?
Yeah, I don't know how to quantify Hayden's chances, but I think Witherspoon has a better chance of coming back than Hayden.
Okay, let's assume that's dangerous to do going into this offseason. Let's assume Hayden's not re-signed. Okay. You got Cameron Sutton sitting out there right now. That's farm raised, right? Grain fed. That's kind of catfish. I used to work for the place Cock and a Walk that had farm raised grain fed catfish. And boy, you want to talk about some good catfish. But Cameron Sutton is farm raised grain fed, right? I mean, that's a product of your own system there, and he now makes $4.5 million new money average. Okay. You have a guy on the outside that you traded for that had a $4 million average, came in and really didn't play much of any until the latter part of the season, and then did put some nice things on tape, and you're probably going to want to re-sign him. Is there going to be any issue there if you ended up signing this guy in Witherspoon for $6-7 million and Cameron Sutton just going to have to get over it? You see the angle I'm attacking this at? The Steelers normally have more. People might not realize this, but the Steelers do a pretty good job in the whole hierarchy kind of thing, and don't try to rock the boat too terribly much from that aspect. I wonder if you get into that neighborhood of more than $4.5 million or more. Let's set it at $5 million. If you get in, I wonder if they'd be willing to go more than that on Witherspoon, just from several angles.
Yeah, it's a good point. I hadn't thought about it from that aspect. But the bottom line is the market's the market. Last year was very unique with the cap situation and all the cost cutting and those kinds of things. This year's a bit different, a bit more normal. So, if it makes your team better, then it makes your team better. And I mean, that's kind of the bottom line. But I hear what you're saying.
I mean, and once again, I think about this stuff way too much. But how do you think Cameron Sutton will feel if Witherspoon gets I don't know, 2 years, 14, something like. What's Sutton going to think to himself?
I mean, point taken for sure. Now Sutton seems to be a pretty team guy and selfless guy and not a big ego kind of guy, so that helps. But yeah, I think it's hard not to think about those things sometimes
until you start looking at the numbers. But
right,
I do kind of wonder about that, and I do kind of wonder. Just being careful not to overinflate Witherspoon's value right now. Anyway, I mean, the gold-plated turd is still a turd sometimes. At its core. Not saying that he's a turd. I'm just using that as an analogy there. But in other words, I don't think you need to overvalue. I think the Steelers need to be careful to not overvalue Ahkello Witherspoon.
No, I get that. We've kind of cautioned that for a little while now. But I mean, if that's the principle and you don't pay Witherspoon because you don't want to pay more than Sutton, Joe Hayden's not taking Sutton money, right? So Hayden's not coming back at that point. So what do? You put a rookie in there? Because I mean, if you're going to sign a corner, it's going to cost a fair amount of money.
Right. Look, getting an established free agent from an outside like the Steelers did Hayden, I think rocks the boat less than something like this where Witherspoon's obviously not a known commodity. Now, if you went out and got a premier corner in the manner that the Steelers kind of did Joe Hayden several years ago, I think that sets differently. Because they got the guy that you're going to get's decorated, and to me, I think it's easier for a guy maybe like Sutton to swallow that kind of stuff. I know I'm getting more into the
in the weeds.
Well, not in the weeds as much as I am into trying to outthink the mental psychology aspect of it. Psychological.
Yeah, you're kind of twisting with all the rules about what's allowed and what's not. Yeah, if you get like a J.C. Jackson, then that's Sutton's probably understandable about that. But I'm just assuming you don't get a top level guy like that. I hear what you're saying. I don't know.
Then you probably do address it during the draft and keep your fingers crossed. Then
Yeah. I don't know. We'll see. I think there's some risk there with Witherspoon. Say that 3 times fast. But at the same time, he did play well, and maybe this is the right fit for him, and maybe his career is coming together. He's still a fairly young guy, and so you kind of have to weigh both of those things.
Right now, after saying all that, do I like the chances of Witherspoon being re-signed? Yes, I think I do, but I would be careful with him just the same because once again, we don't have a large selection of tape on him.
Right, and that's where you talked about how you structure this deal is going to be really important. I think that's kind of the big key there.
Right now, you might have to put I don't know. Let's say is $4.5 million still too cheap for him? Do you think there's a team out there willing to pay a guy like Witherspoon more than that?
Yeah, I mean, he got $4 million from Seattle this year and put on good tape the back half of this year. So, I mean, I think his market's going to be above $4 million.
You think it's $7 million? I mean, you got Denzel Ward making 7.2. Avonte Maddox is making 7.5 with the Eagles. Dang. Look at Kyle Fuller, even or Kendall Fuller with Washington, $10 million. Kyle Fuller with Broncos, 9.5. Even Joe Hayden coming off of a deal that he's earning 11. Bradley Roby with the Saints making 10.5. Maybe Cameron Sutton need to change agents.
Pittsburgh, by the way, had interest in, and that's a good joke about Sutton, had interest in Roby. They offered Roby before they offered Steven Nelson. So just something, he's older now, obviously, but something worth mentioning.
It's just so hard to kind of gauge Witherspoon based on what we've seen so far. I think. I mean, Mike Hilton even got $6 million, but Mike Hilton, Steve's probably been better off paying Mike Hilton that $6, giving him that contract there. Anyway, I view Ahkello Witherspoon as an incredibly difficult guy to get a market value on right now.
Yeah, me too. But I think 6'7", structured. Team friendly is probably the way to go about it. Speaking of Cam Sutton talked about playing his first year as a full-time outside corner and just said it felt like being a rookie all over again. And the volume of snaps and just kind of that space out there, that island that you live on as a boundary or field corner was a challenge for him. So what do you think about Sutton's overall season, Dave, as a first-year true, almost full-time outside corner?
I thought it was good. I think some of the things with him are always going to be there as well, too. The ability to want to be too aggressive at times and maybe jump something can have an impact and get you beat over the top. That's one of the biggest things that I think where he's the most vulnerable at times is maybe try to be too aggressive at times.
Yeah, I think my biggest issue is less that. It's just he's physically very average. Athletically, build-wise, length-wise, he's very average. And when you're on the outside, you're going against some of the best freaks in football. Now, there's a lot of good slot receivers as well. Don't misunderstand me. Cooper Kupp put up big records this year from the slot, but you're going against some of the top guys. And I think sometimes that can just be challenging when you're facing a Justin Jefferson, for example. He had some struggles in that game. It's just tough to match those guys, whenever they're just twice the athlete and that you are.
Look, he's not a premier corner in this league. No, for sure.
Yeah.
He's a serviceable, what I would consider just a guy that plays opposite you, number one,
Mm-hmm. But to his point, I mean, this was.
He's extremely smart, though. Very cerebral, and you go all the way back to the comments Colbert and Tomlin made coming out of when they drafted him and the time that they spent on the campus of Tennessee. And I think you need those kind of guys. I think he's an excellent leader. I think he's going to have to be one of those new kind of secondary leaders along with a guy like Minka back there. I would hope that he's a pretty good communicator while on the field as well too there. So, I mean, but I don't view him as a guy that's going to ever have, 5-6 interceptions along those lines there. But I think he can be a serviceable cornerback for this team moving forward the next couple of years.
Yeah, I think he's an, average outside corner, but there was a big volume of snaps. He played 576 snaps a year ago, played over 1,100 in 2021, and he played only 7% right corner in 2020, 74% in 2021. So there was an adjustment to be made about A, the volume of snaps, and then B, just the concentration of snaps. And so there's hopefully maybe some growth in year two of him being a full-time outside right cornerback.
Right.
Dave, speaking of other players here who spoke with the media, Isaiahh Loudermilk spoke, the rookie from Wisconsin. I like hearing from these guys about what they want to work on for next year. I think those are sometimes the most interesting comments. I've heard Pat Freiermuth talk about those things. Isaiahh Loudermilk's goal for next year two for him, is to become a better pass rusher. And I said that from day one. What he can do as a pass rusher is probably going to determine, A, will he be a starter, and B, kind of what his overall ceiling is. His run defense, while it needs some work, is in a good place for a rookie, but pass rush is where he's really got to improve upon his game.
Yeah, we saw a lot of exciting stuff. I think more so from him against the run and his ability to stand lineman up and then be able to flash one side or the other and discard and make plays that way there. So I think he will continue to grow as a run defender. There were too many times going back to the preseason where you see him kind of get twisted and turned. So I think he's going to get stronger, learn how to better anchor and play the run from that aspect there. But yeah, I mean, he's going to have to become, as going to have to take a lot of lessons, I think, from Cameron Hayward there and Stephon Tuitt. Just not a high enough volume. Obviously got a higher volume of snaps than what he even thought. And he talked about that, you didn't know what to expect going into this season with him. His initial probably expectation was, I'm not going to play much. Then you have things happen the way they happen with the injuries. You just don't know who's going to get thrust in there. And all in all, looking back at it now after the fact, you're glad he got those snaps because his learning period was sped up on top. But yeah, absolutely, he's got to become a better pass rusher. And what better person does he have to learn from than one Cameron Hayward, who's really has seemed to take him up underneath his wing. So if he can start showing in that, when you talk about guys that we'll be looking at in 2022 to make that quote unquote second year jump, which by the way, the Steelers really didn't get that good second year jump out of their second year players this year. And that played a large part too of why they only won 9 football games, I think. So if you want to talk about guys that are probably you're going to look forward to have this second year jumps, it's him. And I would think it would be in the pass rushing department more than anything else.
Yeah. And to kind of specify how he can improve, it's probably really following that Hayward model of strength and power and being very technical and very good with your hands, because athletically he's never going to have tremendous burst or great hips and stuff like that. He's just kind of a big dude in general. There's a lot of surface area, so just playing with leverage and a good punch and power with your long arm, your bull, is probably going to be his ticket to becoming a more effective pass rusher. So that's probably the challenge that I would offer him from my nosebleed seats this offseason.
Damn, Hayward's just so damn strong, and he's got such powerful hands, and he's got the ability with that long arm where, I mean, there's some instances where it looks like he's just got that thing wedged right up underneath in the chest, in that chest plate, and he can just drive people off that way. A tremendous bull rush. Hayward can still swim over people too. And he's got enough quickness to do that. Here's the thing: when Loudermilk gets in front of the camera, you can't help but just sit there and smile for some reason. I don't know why. Just guys.
Is it the hair?
I don't know. He's extremely likable kid overall, and I know it's easy, but you can somewhat see a young kind of Cameron Hayward in him. Hopefully he is kind of that next guy that can become that defensive leader. Because who is that guy right now on defensive line? That next potential leader, if you will. So
yeah. Well, hopefully Hayward's playing for. It looks like his career's not ending anytime soon.
Right. But I mean, you're going to have to need a guy after that at some point.
Sure.
Hopefully Loudermilk can slowly become that guy there. But there was good things. The positive things that stuck out the most for me with him was late, during the second half of the season was that play against the run with them. And for him to do that in more of a second half of the season too, or really even the last quarter, to be quite honest with you, you hear these guys talk about that rookie wall and all like that. For him to be able to reach down and deeper and to be able to show some of those things in the final kind of quarter of the season, I think speaks volumes about his growth. There was growth, easily recognizable growth with him from right out of the chute on into the last couple of games. And with a guy like that you question the trade up and, is this guy just a height, weight, speed match kind of guy? I mean, probably one of the more surprising guys in this year's draft class, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah, I think so. I think he set a very high floor for himself this year. Loudermilk did, as at least he'll become a rotational base, good run stuffing two-gapper. The question is where that ceiling comes in at. Can he become more than that? Can he become a sub-package, three-tech pass rusher? Can he become just an overall good pass rusher in general and be able to play more snaps because of it? That's going to be the key for him. But yeah, just to kind of pull back, man, Dave, this rookie class played so much this year, top to bottom. I mean, the only two guys who didn't were Roche, who got claimed by the Giants, ended up playing a lot of snaps for them, and then Buddy Johnson. But, not just Harris and Freiermuth. It's Moore, it's Green, it's Loudermilk, it's Norwood, it's Harvin. All these guys were playing, some roles bigger than others, obviously, but they all were playing heavy snaps this year for a rookie class.
You start, I think, with Loudermilk right around the Detroit game is really when, Loudermilk, though, even, obviously with Tyson Alualu going down early and the team not having Stephon Tuitt, right out of shoot, I'm looking at Loudermilk snap counts, 18 snaps against Vegas. Obviously, he probably doesn't get those if Tyson Alualu doesn't go down. 9 against the Bengals, 17 against Green Bay. Where it really started to pick up for him was the Detroit game. 25 snaps became his new season high at that time. Followed that up with 27 more against Cincinnati. And then as I just mentioned, you get into the latter quarter of that season, he went 24 again. And I think wasn't that about the time that Wormley had that Wormley's groin was the Tennessee game, if I'm not mistaken, with Wormley, or maybe that was the end of the Minnesota game. It was right around in there. But Loudermilk went 24 against the Titans, 35 against KC, 45 against Cleveland in week 17, and then it ticked back down 14 against the Ravens. I guess that's when they got didn't they get Wormley back about that time?
Came back.
There. So 288 regular season defensive snaps for Loudermilk. That's probably 188 more than what I envisioned him getting the day he was drafted.
Mm-hmm. But I think that's one reason why he didn't hit the wall, because he wasn't playing so much early on. So he didn't have his body never really hit the wall because he could kind of ramp up late in the year. So I think that's one reason why he avoided it. And just overall, again, the rookies played a lot, which had its negativity, but it should help those guys tremendously going into year two, that they have that experience under their belt. It's not just practice time and mental reps, it's physical reps to watch and learn, get better, make mistakes, and grow. And so hopefully there'll be a long-term benefit for those guys playing so much in year one.
But just looking back to my initial thoughts on Loudermilk the day he was drafted, and then quickly getting into that film of his after he was drafted, I think he's become, I think he progressed nicely throughout his rookie season, and there is, I think, kind of as you just insinuated, there's a ceiling area for him still to grow in. And I don't think it's easy to quantify that still yet, because I don't think we've seen enough tape on him. But I think we've seen enough to know that some growth should be expected with him still.
Yeah, for sure. It's just a year one guy, so he's going to get better, as all year one guys do. So good stuff there from Loudermilk. Presley Harvard also speaking this year, or speaking the other day, and about this year, and just kind of the difficulties of this year, both personally with the death of his father, his grandmother, and then his on-field struggles as well, which might be impacted by some of the personal stuff. So I think took a very mature approach, and hopefully he'll be better for year number 2.
Yeah, boy, that guy went through the ringer, didn't he? With the loss of and he revealed that his grandmother died, 2 weeks or a week after his dad passed away.
Yeah, he had mentioned that, I think, on Instagram earlier, a couple weeks ago, so it wasn't breaking news. But yeah, I think some people didn't know that fact.
Yeah, and obviously thankful the way the organization handled him, because look, I mean, you could have made a solid argument that the team, especially in those final couple weeks, there should have went with Waitman, over him, and a very grounded kid. I mean, I don't see how anybody can listen to Presley Harvin and not root for him, especially all that he's been through. So look, he talked about going into the offseason. I think he mentioned about get some work in and done in some different geographical areas as well too. I think he understands the grind now of an NFL season. He talked about only playing 10, 11 games in college at max, and then look, you just getting into the second half of the season at that point in the NFL. So there will be a lot of growth expectation out of him now that the team is stuck with him, and right out of the chute, the expectation is to start seeing that kid that boomed those putts at Georgia Tech.
Yeah, I mean, understand the personal stuff, and you feel for the guy and you root for the guy to turn things around. But his year was not good. He was 28th out of 29 qualifiers in punting average. He was 27th in net average. And so it was not a good year for him. And so he's got to for sure get better. There probably will be some level of competition this summer, so his job should not be considered safe. But hopefully he can kind of get past this and the mental aspect as he talked about, and just push through and be a better guy, a better punter in year number 2.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Corliss Waitman got claimed off waivers by the Broncos. Mm-hmm. So any idea that I'm willing to bet you that this team was hoping that Corliss Waitman would get through waivers so they could sign him back to a futures contract to have those two pushing each other through training camp and all. But that obviously doesn't look like it's going to be the case now. So you can bet that it's only a matter of time before we see a punter on the transaction list here being signed to an off-season deal.
Mm-hmm. And they usually have 2 anyway, but I think it'll be maybe a bigger name or maybe a more veteran guy as more legit competition than the quote-unquote, camp leg.
Right.
We'll see on that, though. All right, Dave, anything else from the other players who spoke, or any other comments that are worth getting to that I didn't already address?
Well, that Cameron Sutton can talk, can he?
Just how much is he saying is the actual question.
Yeah. Here's my final takeaway too, kind of on before we get too far away from it, from what Tomlin and had to say, what the quarterbacks had to say. I think the biggest takeaway from all this is, if either one of those guys were going to be the guy, we would know that they would be the guy by now. Tomlin, the way Tomlin framed things, these guys are going to have in other words, if Mason Rudolph was the slam dunk, we're moving forward in post Ben Roethlisberger era with Mason Rudolph, then that would be out of Mike Tomlin's mouth by now.
Yeah, well, it's not a surprise that neither guy's been anointed the guy, because neither has done enough to be anointed as the guy.
No, I'm just saying, that would have been a definitive now at this point, and it's not. So it is wide open, that position as we sit here right now, and it could, as we mentioned the other day, it could go one of 7 different directions probably.
And really, it's even before 04, because in 04 it was pretty clear that Maddox was the starter that year. So the last time there was an open quarterback battle heading into an offseason or camp, I'm not even sure what year it was. It's prior to Ben's arrival even.
Shoot, was it Graham, Cordell Stewart ish?
That's about right. Yeah, in the early 2000s, something like that. Because they signed Graham from the Giants, I think he was with,
and that was
and then Batch came over as well.
Yeah. So
it's been about 20 years since they've actually had a true quarterback battle to be the week 1 starter.
I mean, that's where we're at. We kind of probably you kind of try to give the heads up. You don't know where you're at till you're at where you're at sometimes. And we are at where we were at.
Yeah, it's just crazy to think about. There are some people listening to this who have not been alive since the last time Pittsburgh had a true quarterback competition for the week 1 starter, and that's just hard to wrap your head around.
Ooh, hope people drink a lot.
Hopefully the people listening who qualify are not drinking, because I don't think they're of age yet.
All right. That didn't stop me, but go ahead.
Yes, Dave Bryant.
Yeah.
I'm going to
look, it is going to be quite interesting. And I think you wrote a post about this a couple of days ago here saying, along the lines that it is wide open and it is the right way to handle this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You don't want to commit to anything right now. You don't want to say no to 95% of options right now, because you're in uncharted territory and you don't want to go in with blinders on.
Right. And what a bat, top totality wise. And I still, going through tape on a lot of these other quarterbacks in this class, but totality wise, it's not all that intriguing to me. Of a class. I don't even think it's as good as last year's class there either. So, are you going to be looking at some, to me, unless you're going to trade, why would you trade for a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo? Give me a good reason why you would.
Yeah, I don't have one. He's on I said 95% of options. You keep open. The other 5% are things like I would not trade for Garoppolo. It's not worth it contractually, draft pick, and talent wise.
I mean, would you trade for a guy like Kirk Cousins?
No.
Would you?
The 2 quarterbacks I would trade for are Aaron Rodgers and Derek Carr, assuming both become available. Which, who knows what will happen there? Right,
and I will be shocked if Aaron Rodgers is that guy. I think I'll be just as shocked if Derek Carr is that guy too, but there's probably more plausibility to Carr than there is Rodgers in my eyes. I'll be surprised if it's any one of those.
Sure.
Wilson, Rodgers, Carr, Matt Ryan kind of guys. I'll be more surprised because, I mean, why would you want to spend $20 million, why would you want to trade like a 3rd round pick? I've seen some people, even that Zach Gelb, throw it out there the other day that, you give the 49ers a 3rd round pick for Jimmy Garoppolo, and then, basically it's a 1-year rental, and you see if he can play himself into the franchise tag, basically, but Garoppolo's already 30-something years old. I mean, it'd be one thing if these guys were cut and were free agents and you're signing them off the street for $15 million or so, because look, quarterbacks aren't cheap. Even your middle tier guys are going to cost you, $15 million, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's one thing. Like I said, that you're trading draft picks for a big contract that's not long term, and the talent is far from overwhelming. So it doesn't make sense on any level to me to trade for Jimmy Garoppolo.
I mean, if you thought Jimmy could be the guy, all right, if you're convinced out of the chute right now that Jimmy is the guy, well, then you trade for him, then you sign him to a deal, under market value deal, and then you ride with him for 4 or 5 years, that way. But I don't view this organization as viewing Garoppolo as potentially being that guy that you do that with. I don't think it's a smart business decision to throw. You're already down it'd be one thing maybe if you had an extra third, and who knows way this thing will play out. Maybe Steelers getting a draft pick that way by losing a minority to another team and all like that. But I don't know. Maybe you trade a third that way if you got an extra one that way for a 1 year rental. But not as things stand right now. I don't think you do that.
Yeah, I don't think so.
If you got another third right now, let's say you got another third from losing a minority to a GM
Omar
job.
Khan gets hired by the Bears.
Okay, let's say you got a third that way. Would you then look at trading a third for a guy like Garoppolo or
No.
Cousins and not giving him a deal?
No, it's I want to use that extra third to help my team internally with all the other needs. And again, it's the financial, it's the talent. I'm not trading anything for Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm not trading a 6th-round pick for Jimmy Garoppolo.
Okay, all right.
That's just kind of where I'm at there. So
I think you're better off at. Let me ask you this: from where you sit right now, will both Mason Rudolph and Dwayne Haskins both be on the Week 1 53-man roster?
Yes.
Okay.
What say you?
I'm trending. I'm feeling no on that.
I assume that's Haskins coming off of that.
Yeah, I think Haskins is the one that could potentially fall off because I'm now at the point where I'm not potentially rolling out this team both going a Mariota and a player in a draft. If they do draft a guy, and I worry about. I don't think that if they draft a guy, they're going to go in there with him in Week 1. There's some level of that Mike Tomlin story from Jay Glazier that I believe, even though Tomlin's not going to cop to it, right? Or didn't cop to it when kind of pressed on that. I just don't, and maybe it's because I've seen the top of the quarterback class already. I don't think there's a guy that you come in Week 1 starter that you think that you can get to the Super Bowl with.
Yeah, point taken, Dave. I think, again, all options are on the table. I don't want to say no to much of anything right now when it comes to what this team's path will be in finding its next quarterback, at least in the short term.
What'd you think about and odds are just odds. But what'd you think about the odds list about who will be the Steelers Week 1 quarterback for 2022? You're not surprised that Mason's leading the list at the lowest odds of plus 275. Anything surprise you kind of on that list? I mean, they have Derek Carr, the second one on there at plus 700. What would you trade for Carr?
I would give up. I don't have an exact answer to that. And who knows who'll be on the market. I think their report chart's going to come down to who their head coach, who the GM is going to be, and all those things. That'll maybe determine Carr's future with the Raiders. I would give up something decent, though. I mean, I don't know if it's a second and something else. Could potentially be a 1st-round pick. But you're gonna have to trade something pretty heavy for a guy like Carr.
All right, now he's scheduled to make just $19.7 million. I mean, that you can obviously work with that. Mm-hmm. Do you turn around and give him a deal right then?
How much longer does this deal run through? Last year's contract.
2022 is it. He's one of those ones like Wilson and Rodgers where you're dealing with a final year there.
Okay. Yeah, then you probably would to lock him in long term.
All right. So if you're going to lock him in long term, he's not just going to take, $25 million.
I mean, I don't want to get in the weeds about Carr. You're asking about just what the overall odds are. Yeah, I'm not surprised to see Mason Rudolph top of the list because if you had to name one specific name, if you're like the actual individual names, it's the guy who's on the roster right now that's the number 2 quarterback that is in theory number 1 now that Ben's done. So, I mean, that in itself isn't surprising, but those things can change. And listen, they had Mike Tomlin as the second highest odds to become the next Raiders head coach. So odds can be a funny thing sometimes.
Yeah, and not surprising, Kenny Pickett leads the list of draftable quarterbacks at plus 900 there. Real quick, and I know you'll know a lot more about a lot of these top quarterbacks after you get back from the Senior Bowl here. But which one of these guys, in just your brief kind of knowledge at this point, intrigues you the most?
It's very brief.
Is it Pickett, the guy that you would most like to maybe see or think could see?
I want to learn a little more about Sam Howell when I'm down there. I know I mentioned his name a couple times, just based on some of the tea leaves of this team's interest. Colbert being down there, being at his bowl game, and just kind of the arm, the toughness, the mobility. He's not big like Ben, but he's got kind of some of those gamer-ish type traits that are intriguing to me and I think to them.
Yeah, I'm kind of mad on him right now in the early stages, but I'll tell you this: that guy could throw for a guy that's just not even, I don't think, 6'1". Man, he can wing the football, man.
Yeah, and you think, what is this team missing? It's missing mobility, it's missing an arm, but it wants the toughness as well. And I think Howell, baseline level, issues with this game, not a great year, understand all that, but he brings those things.
Kind of reminds you a little bit of Baker, right? At least initially.
Yeah, a little bit, which isn't going to play too well in Pittsburgh circles.
No, it's not there. But that is another guy that I'm trying to learn a little bit more about. Maybe I'll watch a little bit more on him through the weekend. Plus, look, if you listen to this right now and you think Sam Howell is the guy, plus 1,800 on him right now. Throw a dead Benjamin Franklin on that guy. It's not going to be Mitch Trubisky though, right?
I hope not. I wouldn't think so.
Anyway, we'll have plenty of time to talk more about the court. Maybe next week we'll have, maybe to fill some time, Alex. Maybe we'll get either like Jonathan or both Jonathan and Tyler Wise on the show, and because those guys have watched a little bit of quarterback film. Maybe we'll talk about some of these quarterbacks next week.
Yeah, maybe we should do a little Senior Bowl Shrine Game preview. Some guys that are going each place. And tentatively speaking, I believe we're going to start our draft profiles early next week, Monday, Tuesday. So I know people that are itching for that. Those should be coming pre-Senior Bowl and Shrine Game.
Who can you not wait to non-quarterback tear into the film on?
I got to look at the list. I'm going to spend this weekend to really look over some names, but I'm kind of looking positionally right now. Some of the inside linebackers that are down there. I've been watching Chad Muma from Wyoming. I love Logan Wilson coming out. I'm sure he'll get some Logan Wilson comps. I don't know how similar their game actually is, but positionally, some of the inside linebackers and some of the offensive linemen I'll be taking a good look at.
All right. Fair enough. All right. Where to from here?
Dave, you have done a good job recapping the exclusive rights, restricted free agents to be, and your unrestricted post will go up. It's already up on the site by the time people are listening to this. It's actually up on the site right now at 11:45 in the morning. But we'll start and just kind of run through the exclusive rights and the restricted guys today, both offense and defense. For the exclusive rights, it's J.C. Hassenauer, Christian Kuntz, who just signed that one-year contract, DeMarcus Christmas and DeMarcus AC, Christmas and AC ending the year on injured reserve. So the real big name here is J.C. Hassenauer. Again, exclusive rights. Team has total control. They'll tender him, and he'll be back in camp in 2022.
Yeah, four, as you mentioned on this list, two of them in DeMarcus Christmas and DeMarcus AC on IR. How do you not exclusive rights tendered J.C. Hassenauer, and I believe that amount this time around should be $895,000. It's a non-guarantee too, and Christian Kuntz, I believe that's $825,000 was the one-year deal that he signed. It's a no-brainer with Hassenauer, right?
Yeah, 100%. He's coming back.
All right, and my speculation on the other two, on DeMarcus Christmas and DeMarcus AC. Probably not going to happen for either of those two.
Yeah, Christmas he got hurt in the summer or the spring. I think he did an OTAs or something, and AC got hurt early on in camp with an ACL, unfortunately. So yeah, neither of those guys should be tendered. Right,
and AC probably not even fully recovered from that as well too. So Kuntz and Hassenauer, Kuntz already done. JC shouldn't be too far behind him.
All right, so let me pull up the list of restricted free agents, just a couple on there. They are Spillane, right? Let me pull up the list here so I'm not saying anything incorrect. Robert Spillane, Marcus Allen, and Dwayne Haskins. I'll let you run through those guys, but Haskins should be the original round tender, which because his first round pick means a team would have to give up a first round pick to sign him away, which is not going to happen, and probably original round tenders on Allen and Spillane, you're thinking?
I'm thinking probably right of first refusal on both those guys, which is now even lower than the original round tender. So, is there a reason to put an original round tender on Marcus Allen to get back? What was he, a fifth rounder?
Yeah, Yeah.
Do you spend the extra little bit of money?
How much more is it? I think I was trying to articulate right of first refusal, but I might have been saying that incorrectly. Okay. The lowest tender is what I'm trying to say on both of those guys.
Okay, then that would be the right of first first refusal on those, I believe, and all. So regardless, I know people are not going to like to hear it. Man, it feels like Spillane's been like an exclusive or a restricted for a long time. He kind of got caught in that trap that the Steelers like to set with some of those younger guys. But there's no way that they don't restricted tender Robert Spillane, right? It's non-guaranteed deal. Can get him in there at least competing for a job. The guy gives you enough on special teams to at least do that, I think.
Yeah, I think that's well said, and I agree.
And I think really Marcus Allen, ditto, a guy that special teams, a guy that backup inside linebacker you bring in to allow compete. So to me, it would be surprising if either one of those guys weren't restricted tenders, and I think you'd probably agree.
Yeah, maybe with Allen, they don't tender, but they won't tender, but they'll re-sign him to a 1-year deal worth a little bit cheaper money, $1.5, $2 million, but a tender would not surprise me in the least.
All right, that's a good point too. You could probably get away. Robert Spillane would probably have some action if you didn't tender him, right?
I don't think he would do that approach with Spillane, but we've seen it with some lower level guys. And Allen has a role as a core special teamer, but I could see that with Allen where they don't tender, but they bring him back on a 1-year, $1.75, $1.5 million deal.
And the deal with Haskins is really what we've been talking about from the moment they really signed him, originally. Is if things go well for him and he sticks on the roster, with him being a former first-round draft pick, all you have to do is put a low original round tender on him, and there's no way anybody's going to sign him away to give you a first-round draft pick for him, because it's you don't see these kind of circumstances crop up very often, but that's almost a guaranteed that they're going to do with him. That amount should be, I believe, $2.54 million on him, non-guaranteed. That at least gets him, keeps him with you over the summer, and then you go from there.
Yeah, I think it was Joe Corey, our buddy, that compared this to Deion Jordan in 2018, former first-round pick that I think he ended up in Miami, I believe it was, and they had a similar approach there. So, yeah, that should be the approach with Haskins. It's a very smart and creative way that this team's probably been planning since the moment they signed him. I think it's actually a year ago today was when they signed Dwayne Haskins.
Oh, okay. And, if you add all these up, you're right around, let's see, 2.4 and 2.4, that's 4.8 plus some change, so almost 5. And then you look at Haskins, you're looking at about 7.5 roughly million in tenders there. And if you subtract out, 1.5 from that for displacement, and also you're looking at about where do I have? Is that about 4 million in cap space used to restricted tender those three guys.
Okay, so it will be, and you're going to have a salary cap post on that soon. Yes?
Yeah, I'm setting some traps for some people right now.
Don't set traps.
To put some bad info out there on there right now. Look, a lot of people want to go ahead, and I know there's some articles out there saying, the Steelers can get to 70 million under.
Mm-hmm. I have seen those.
And a lot of those are way out there kind of thinking. And a lot of those also don't take into account the expenditures that are coming on down the line for this team as well too. And, things like these tenders and everything. Anyway, I'll lay all that out. I hope to have that done by the weekend here. By Monday at the latest, I will have, like the first of my series of 3 posts on where the Steelers sit at the salary cap right now, where they're headed to, and some of the options that they'll have there.
Okay, sounds good. And just some other minor housekeeping notes. I'm still waiting to see if and when the Bears interview Omar Khan. I think it's going to be this upcoming week. The Bears are still going to extend their GM interviews into this upcoming week here. So I haven't heard that yet. So I'm keeping an eye on that situation. And the first shoe to drop seems to be occurring where the Giants are hiring Joe Shane to be their next GM. So that's the first domino to fall, which usually starts speeding up some other names getting hired.
What's his history?
He's the Bills' assistant GM.
Okay.
So not that it matters for Pittsburgh, but just kind of That's the first domino to fall. And again, I'm watching Omar Khan to see if his name gets interviewed by Monday, Tuesday of next week with Chicago.
All right.
Who's interviewing a ton of guys, by the way, and some of those aren't always being reported. So we're trying to keep an eye on what's happening there. All right, Dave, anything else you want to talk about today? Anything I missed that we needed to address?
Have we got through the bulk of the news and notes and things that people were expecting us to talk about today? I think so, right?
I think so. I hope so. They'll tell us. All right, Dave. So before we make our divisional picks, it feels weird to have a week of picks not involving the Steelers. But before we do that, let's hear from our friends over at MyBookie.
I don't know about you, but I'm looking forward to watching some games on Saturday and Sunday. Yeah. Sitting back and watching that stuff. And we'll have some game threads up on SteelersDepot.com along with some Twitter feeds that have the highlights in them, as we usually do. If you're looking for something to follow along with and do some chatting, do that. Also, if you're looking to put some money down on some of these games this weekend, when it comes to gambling, you always want to make sure you're getting the best bang for your buck. And that's why I always bet with MyBookie. At MyBookie, you can bet on all your favorite sports with exclusive promotions, contests, and more. Find your winning bet. Right now, when you make your first deposit with MyBookie, you instantly receive double your first deposit, and it's easy to get that. All you have to do is go to mybookie.ag, sign up, and use promo code TERRIBLE. That's terrible. And MyBookie will double your first deposit instantly up to $1,000. How's that for some fast money? And you can use that instant fast money to bet on these big games this weekend. And boy, it's a great weekend to be a football fan. I think when it comes to some of these games, some excellent ones to probably bet on this weekend here. And Alex and I will go over those here in a little bit here. This promotion is only available for a limited time. Moving further, so don't miss out. Head to mybookie.ag, use promo code TERRIBLE, and secure your double deposit bonus today as promo code TERRIBLE, so you can double your funds to double your winnings. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie at mybookie.ag.
All right, Dave, let's make our picks for divisional playoff weekend.
Boy, some good games this week. To start off with, on Saturday, Cincinnati Bengals going to Tennessee to play the number 1 seed Titans. Titans at home, favored by 3.5 over the Bungles.
Yeah, this should be a really good game. Two differently built teams. You do wonder the Bengals just lost Larry Ogunjobi with Derrick Henry's presumed return. That's going to hurt their run defense chances. But I think the explosive play Cincinnati can generate offensively is going to outweigh what the Titans can do offensively. So give me the Bengals to win by, 6-7 points, and 3 to 5 points in this one.
All right, so you definitely you're definitely taking the 3.5 points to cover then.
Yes,
for sure here. I'm with you on this, Alex. I think, the Titans. It seems like a lot of their hopes and dreams rely on Derrick Henry here, and is that going to be enough? Can they get good enough play out of their defense to help counteract maybe that Bengals passing attack? I don't think so. I think the Bengals can big play them here, and maybe even get Tennessee into a situation where they can't run the balls maybe as much as they want. So, yeah, I'm taking that 3.5 points with you, too, and I bet that money line, too. Take Cincinnati straight up in this one as well. San Francisco 49ers on the road against the Green Bay Packers. Packers at home at Lambeau Field, laying the 6 points.
Yeah, I had the Packers over Chiefs as my Super Bowl prediction, so obviously I'm going to go Green Bay here, and I think the 49ers don't cover either.
But you think the Packers do cover? In other words, you think the Packers win by 6?
Oh, yeah.
By more than 6, right?
Correct, yeah.
I am with you on this one as well, too. I think it's a little bit too much. I think Jimmy G's banged up here. I think they're kind of the 49ers might be hurting a little bit on the defensive side of football as well, too. Warner was dinged up, and I think wasn't the Bosa kid had something going on.
Yeah, but he is playing this weekend at least.
I don't think it's going to be enough there. Give me and doesn't Green Bay get Cobb back? I think.
Yeah, they will
as well. Green Bay lay that 6 in this game. We are lock and step here so far. We Rams at the Buccaneers. This one should be a good one as well. Buccaneers at home, laying 2.5 points against the Rams. Alex.
And the Rams were so impressive against Arizona out of the chute in that game. But it's hard to bet against Tom Brady in the playoffs. So I'm going to go Tampa Bay in this one.
It is hard to bet against Tom Brady in the playoffs. I agree. And I am kind of rooting for a Tom Brady versus Aaron Rodgers in an NFC Championship game here. I'm with you. I'm laying that 2.5 points. Give me Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. Lay that 2.5 points. This one, what a way to close out the weekend. Buffalo Bills on the road against the Kansas City Chiefs. Chiefs at home at Arrowhead, laying 2.5. What a way to close! What a way to close this weekend out.
Is that a night game?
I think so. It's I think it's a Sunday night game, right?
Yeah. Talk about just games to circle, and you hope it's as good as advertised. Yeah, I mean Buffalo. They played just the perfect game you could against the Patriots and Belichick last week. But again, I have the Packers over Chiefs as my prediction, so I'm sticking with it. I think you have the Bills winning the Super Bowl, or going to the Super Bowl at least. So I think I know which way you're going. So I'm going to go Casey.
Yeah, I just can't wait for this game to get here because it should be a good one. Two great young quarterbacks there. I do have the Bills making it all the way. I think the Bills defense is a little bit better overall here. I think Josh Allen and that offense can keep up with the Chiefs, who have been vulnerable at times if you can make them press. Give me the Bills. I want that 2.5 points, and I want that money line as well, too. I'll take Buffalo straight up on this one. So I think we differed on one game here, right? And that's the Bills and the Chiefs game overall. So if you like what we picked there or want to go the opposite way, get to mybookie.ag and use promo code TERRIBLE and get signed up.
All right. Sounds good, Dave. Let's get to reader emails and close out today's show.
Ooh, we still got a ton to get to here. Let's see here. Grant Baker writes in, not sure if you've seen this documentary. Oh, yeah, he sent me something on Grant's an old rock and roller too. Sent me a link on Meatloaf that I'll have to check out here. Thanks for that.
Louis Anderson passed away today, too.
Did he really?
Yeah, 68 years old.
Funny dude. Funny comedian for sure. Richard Jameson writes in, Bruce Arians, the talk about Keith Butler retiring like Bruce Arians retired got me thinking about Arians. Is he the only person from Mike Tomlin's staff to become a head coach in the NFL? Since leaving Pittsburgh, Arians has more conference championships and more Super Bowl rings than Mike Tomlin over that time period. The water cooler talk about Arians' departure was that the Steelers needed to protect their quarterback. But what if Arians had stayed and allowed Ben Roethlisberger to play backyard Ben? The Steelers would not have won fewer conference championships, nor would they have won fewer Super Bowl rings. Perhaps Roethlisberger would have been forced to retire, say 5 years earlier. Even if Landry Jones would have been the starting quarterback for those 5 years, the Steelers would not have won any fewer playoff games, and they would have been much further along in rebuilding for another Super Bowl run. In retrospect, did the Steelers make the right decision to let Arians go? My intent is not to disparage the Steelers or Tomlin, but rather to reassess whether it was the best decision to convert Roethlisberger from backyard Ben into brainy Ben. I took a lot of crap for defending Arians over the years. I feel really justified at this point. Boy, I remember people just, I'll put you this way. I was right. All of y'all were wrong. But with that said, how much longer could Ben kept playing like he was playing? Well, people will say, well, look how Tom Brady's playing now and those kind of things. There's still a lot of four verticals, though, in what Bruce Arians does. They just block it up a lot better on top of it. I don't know. I mean, this is 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. How much longer should they have kept Arians? Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, to your point about Brady, it's better when you got Jensen and Wirfs and all those guys blocking up some of those vertical shots. You got Mike Evans and Godwin when healthy catching it. I don't know. It's who knows. I mean, even if Arians stays, it's not like you're guaranteed to win a Super Bowl. For all you know, Ben's career ends 5 years earlier and you don't win anything either. I mean, you never know when he gets hurt in a playoff game, regular season. Who knows what the case is. So I get the point there. You take the risk, and in hindsight, you say, why not? If you have a chance to win the Super Bowl, you do something different. But I don't think about those things too much because it's all spilt milk.
Yeah, it's all spilt milk, all hypotheticals at this point. Paul Brown writes in NFL officials. Seems this year was an especially poor year for officials in the NFL, with Jerome Boger's crew already getting the boot for the remainder of the playoffs due to horrible officiated game. Is it fair to look at why performance may be bad? The average tenure of an NFL official is 12 years. Boger has 18 years. Could the advanced age of the officials play a factor? I know this comes off as age discrimination. However, it is a fact that reaction times, eyesight, speed deteriorate at advanced ages. They have a tough job officiating games, blah, blah, blah. Comparatively, the average age of an NFL official is 51 years old compared to an NHL official, which is a faster paced sport, of 37 years old. 17 of 85 officials are under 30. Is the NFL keeping officials too long, or is this a recency bias? Sorry, Dave, this wasn't a shot at the old people. You're not old. Thank you, Paul Brown. I mean, I don't know what the answer is to this. Seems like every year we get an email. The officiating seems to be as bad as ever. How much of this is recency bias in here? Look, I think Pat McAfee had a segment the other day that I was able to catch, and they've got to do something. They've got to take some of this eye in the sky stuff. They just got to make sure they're getting it right, and they're getting it right faster.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever that, I don't care if it's a 90-year-old guy you have to have out there or a 22-year-old kid out there to get it right. Whatever it takes. But even so, you can put all these kind of rules in place and think that there's always going to be something that come up that you didn't think that you had covered, and along those lines. But what they can't slow the game down anymore, but they've got to speed up getting it right more.
Yeah, I mean, with the eye in the sky, that happened the other day where in the playoffs, where they overturned a call pretty quickly on a catch, no catch. And I was like, so why do challenges even need to exist anymore? Right. Why not just the eye in the sky, just handle those things? So maybe that challenge system can be obsolete, and that slows down the game dramatically.
Didn't they have something that they did something and they went to review and then it got reversed or something?
Probably. Yeah, I can't remember.
In the game, in the Arizona game, I forget the specifics on that. But look, I like watching, I don't like having to talk about this aspect of it, and I understand why we are at this point. They've just got to do a better job of moving the game along faster, but yet making sure you don't not stopping the play every time to use the eye in the sky type situation there. So
yeah, well, usually the play doesn't have to be stopped because it can be done so quickly. I mean, it just depends. I don't know. I hear what you're saying.
Right. I mean, and this is just obviously recency as well too. I don't. Did you view this season as being worse than it's ever been? When it comes to officiating, I've never felt that way this season.
Yeah, we say that every year. It feels like, and so it's that recency thing you're talking about. It didn't feel like it was very good this year, but I don't have a way to quantify it. I don't study it to really make those
I don't either.
determinations. But to the point about the age is interesting. Obviously, in hockey, you need younger guys because they're on skates and they're flying around and stuff. So you can't really put a 60-year-old on skates out there and expect that to go well. But do you want to hire younger guys? Maybe. That point's taken. But some of those guys work their way up. They enter the league when they're 35 years old. And by the time they become head of official, they're 50. So there's that aspect of it too.
We need laser beams too. two sticks and a chain.
A note card,
yeah. And with all this technology now and chips in the football or whatnot, I mean, we've got to be. Technology should help us be advancing in this area quicker than what it's.
But how would a chip in a football work? Would it light up? I mean, what is the actual?
I mean, just
would it be sending a signal upstairs?
Yeah. I mean, you'd be able to geographically know whether or not it's a first down of some aspect.
Yeah, but what happens whenever you're a half yard short of the sticks and the dude is on the ground, his knee down, but he puts the ball over the sticks there just because he's reaching out just to try to sell it, and then it lights up, and it doesn't help you at all because it's not accurate.
Yeah, you're asking too deep of questions. I'm just giving you surface solutions here. You need to contact Amazon with your questions, Alex.
All right.
AWS. Anyway, Jason Smith writes in, Dave and Alex, longtime listener since 2014, first time emailer. Want to know your opinion? Thank you for finally emailing us, Jason. Don't be a stranger. Wanted to know your opinion on the possibility of signing a guy like Mitch Trubisky. That name too is always, it feels made up for some reason. Mitch Trubisky. He has a draft pedigree, and seeing the dysfunction with the Bears franchise, could he be potentially a player with more upside than, let's say, Mariota? Thanks, and keep up the great work. Jason, I don't want never say never. I mean, we're at the point now where I think Alex, in so many words, wrote the other day, you got to keep all options open. I'll tell you what, Mitch wouldn't get a lot of money from me to come in and compete. I've never been a Mitch Trubisky guy even coming out, but he does have the draft pedigree there, so there is that aspect of it. So I don't want to say never.
Yeah, that pedigree is attractive to Pittsburgh, I'm sure, and I understand he was put in a difficult situation in Chicago, but I just can't buy it. I know it's maybe a bit better in Buffalo as the backup there, but I'm not going to try to bank on trying to capture some sort of magic that may or may not have been there, and thinking that I can. A lot of coaches think they can fix this guy, fix some reclamation project, and the juice isn't worth the squeeze for me, even knowing that it's not going to be a lot of money to sign him.
Yeah, how many Zach Mettenbergs and Paxton Lynches and name me off some other first round. Dwayne Haskins. How many pedigree guys do you want to try?
Yeah, but I mean, Mariota, one of the things they're going to like is pedigree, sure, but he's got more of a track record than what Trubisky has.
Once again, Jason, just because we kind of poo-poo on, I think they could do better than Mitch. I'm not going to sit here and paint myself in the corner and say they absolutely won't go after Mitch. I just would be a bit surprised.
Me too.
Carlos Torres, are we finally seeing Mike's coaching tree blossom, just not in the NFL, but in the USFL with Todd Haley and Kirby Wilson there? Yeah, I guess that's one way to look at it, right?
Yeah, we didn't answer that question about has anyone besides Arians been a head coach outside of Tomlin, but no, I don't think they have, unless Scotty Montgomery. He was a coach in college at East Carolina. I think he's with the Colts now, getting some OC interviews, I believe. But now it's just USFL guys. It's Haley and Kirby Wilson.
Kevin N writes in, OC expected defensive play calling. Either isn't there a way to be prepared for multiple looks? Either OC from above or quarterback himself looks at defense and adjusts a different play if we get a different look, assuming defense is not well disguised. Yeah, look, I mean, I think that's something I mentioned to Alex the other day there. There's, and I respect the video that Alex just did, and it's great. It's got a lot of instances in there as well too. But not every time are you going to roll out in certain situations, down distance, and are you going to win the chess game of having the perfect play call against the perfect, look, cover 2, cover 3, whatever, man type. So there has got to be checks and balances in there to be able to have the quarterback identify and get to something else. And also, look, a lot of people don't realize a lot of these plays, have if the receiver is going to run a different route if he sees a different coverage.
Yeah, I mean, and I addressed that in my video, saying that, no coach is going to be perfect all the time. But the question is, at what point does it become a problem? What point is it just natural? You're not going to win it all versus, okay, we're actually losing more than we should be. And it felt like to me, and those were just some examples. They weren't all the examples, that they were losing that battle more often, especially for an offense that couldn't afford to lose that battle because they were so limited in the personnel, and the O-line wasn't as good as many other teams.
You have got a good quarter. What happens if Tom Brady goes out there and doesn't see the right the defense for the play that's called?
Yeah, I mean, and Ben made checks. He was doing that a ton. He had to do that a ton in the Chiefs game. But you don't want to be in that situation all the time because then there's a stress on getting before the play clock, and if you're on the road and communication issues and stuff like that, you want to limit those moments as much as possible.
Charles writes in, I think Pouncey's last year and Green's rookie year were well below average for NFL centers. PFL rankings agreed. He says the center position has been a key reason the running game has struggled the last 2 years. I'm surprised in your discussion you didn't mention Banner as a possible right tackle. I don't see the Steelers giving up on him, he says. Starters left to right, he says. Moore, Dotson. He has Ryan Jensen, Tampa Bay. Look, I've seen Ryan Jensen's name thrown around a lot. I love Ryan Jensen. You want to talk about no nonsense, badass, but he is up there in age now.
Yeah, but you can't use age as everything and shut it down.
I'm just saying he is a good player, and he's going. Look, he's even at his age right now. He's going to command.
Yeah, and he's what? Yeah, he's going to command. He's making $10 million this year. How old is he though? Like he's in his 30s right now,
right? 30, 31.
Yeah, he's not like 35 though.
No,
he's 30. He'll be 31 for the start of the season.
Right, but I mean, we point. It's more so on a defensive side of football than it is on the offensive side of football. He's going to be 31 in May.
Right. And even defensively, they started breaking those rules. With Ingram, they looked at Kerrigan.
How did that Ingram work out?
Ingram worked out well from a player standpoint, like from a talent standpoint. His issue was that he was old and washed up, which is the concern with 30-year-olds.
I just look, I love Ryan Jensen. I think that's a guy, he's very Pouncey like in his demeanor too,
Yeah. And as you said, the 30-year-old doesn't apply nearly as much for offense as it does defense.
Right. No. Look, I've said they got to do something at the center position. To me,
Jensen would be great.
And if Jensen has to be that guy, have at it, man. Have at it. But he will not be cheap. I'll tell you that.
Sure. And plus, whatever it's worth, they know him from Baltimore. He's began his career in Baltimore, so they know him. He knows them. He kind of gets the AFC North feel. So I don't know if that helps a little bit, but it probably doesn't hurt.
He has Moore, Dotson, Ryan Jensen, a first-round pick on a right guard, and Banner at right tackle. He says backups are Haig as a swing tackle, Green, and Hassenauer. I tell you this, and I meant to get to this to mention my terrible take there. Look, Banner, to me personally, there's no way you can have Zach Banner on a practice field in 2022 at the risk of $5 million. To me, you just cannot let that happen. This guy's played less than 100 snaps at tackle in the NFL still. And we keep talking about, is this guy the potential? We don't know if he can play right tackle.
Yeah.
We think that maybe he can if he can stay healthy, but we just don't know yet with him. So here's what I think could potentially happen. You go to Zach Banner and say, look, you got $4.5 million of our money right now. Why don't you take a cut of this $5 million down to the NFL minimum, which for him would be a little bit over $1 million. And why don't we see how it goes from there?
Yeah, I understand that. It's a difficult conversation to have, but it might be the one that keeps his roster spot at least through the summer. I mean, unless you're going to make him the starter out of the gate, then I think it's just hard to justify because the guy hasn't played. He just hasn't been available, and that's some bad luck for sure. It's not really on him, but it's hard to commit to a guy like that when he just hasn't played for you.
Right. I mean, we keep talking about this guy, future right tackle. People keep talking about you guys are giving up on him and all like that. How long has this guy been in the league, and how many snaps at true tackle has he taken? Half of them came in week 1 against the New York Giants, more than half in 2020.
Right. Yeah. And even this year when he was healthy, the wild card game, Okorafor doesn't finish that game. Who comes in to replace Okorafor? It's Joe Haig. So even in chances where Banner could play, they weren't playing him.
Haig has more value to you times 5 than Zach Banner does right now.
Yeah. And, Banner had versatility and flexibility. That'd be another thing, but he doesn't have that. And that's usually a requirement for most of those guys. But Banner's the exception where he's a right tackle and right tackle only, which limits how much you could possibly use him.
If I'm the Steelers front office, I'm going to him and I'm saying, look, I mean, if Banner was cut tomorrow, where does he go? And what does he get?
A minimum deal somewhere.
All right. So if that's what you're facing, I'd go to him and say, look, Zach, we're going to have to let you go unless you want to adjust this paragraph 5 down from $5 million to $1 million. And then even, you know what I'm doing on top of that too? I'm taking much. If I can work in a split salary on top of that, I'm going to do that. Meaning that if he has to go to IR, you know, he gets a split salary on that. But look, the guy's salt of the earth. I mean, I feel bad for him, but you cannot keep throwing bad money in the hole like that.
Yeah, no, I understand for sure.
Emerson Kennedy writes in, Steelers question. Thanks for all you do. A lot of players seem to talk about the Steelers organization having a family culture, everything from Harvin talking about the Rooney family motto of family, faith, and football to guys like Sutton talking about Terrell Austin being a player's coach to the same thing being said about Tomlin. His question is, are other football franchises characterized this way, or are there other ways to characterize the culture of a football organization? Do you think having a family culture may in some ways actually hinder the Steelers from performing like they should to reach a Super Bowl because we have coaches whose bent is relational instead of having coaches who come across more businesslike and discipline-like at Belichick? I think he misspelled a word in there. Okay. But it's throwing off the whole sentence. But what's your thought on the Steelers having too much of a family culture is what this is getting at here?
Yeah, I mean, certainly other franchises, the ones more successful, the ones more stable, get described that way as well. So the Pittsburgh Steelers aren't unique in that wording, but just in their history of the continuity of same head coach, same GM, same ownership, that in itself is pretty unique. Most teams don't have that. The same ownership ones, you know, Cardinals, the Giants have that turnover at GM and head coach. Is it an issue? I mean, there's pros and cons to everything, but I don't want to act like the Steelers don't discipline their guys either. I think sometimes, you know, what Tomlin gets allotted for from players, he gets known as a player's coach, but what that means to the players themselves is that he's very honest and transparent and will let you know exactly where you stand, and he's not going to BS you and stuff like that. So it's not players coaching the buddy, I'll be your best friend, or, you know, we'll just pal around. It's you know, it's stern when it needs to be stern. It's you know, a hug when you need a hug. And so I think there's a bit of misnomer about what that means sometimes with the organization.
All right, one last one here. We got a lot in here once again, but we're running out of time. And buddy George O'Dottery's back in here again, longtime listener and supporter of the show from Northeastern College there. Tanking for C.J. Stroud. Hey, guys, as a Steelers OSU fan, I'm firmly in the camp that the Steelers should tank for C.J. Stroud. Admittedly, I am biased, but I can see him as the next Peyton Manning. Thus, I think the Steelers should commit to Rudolph or Haskins for at least a year. The advantage of this approach is that you can start rebuilding the other parts of the roster and truly evaluate Rudolph and or Haskins. I'm ready to be surprised, but I might suggest that Rudolph has been evaluated. So I would give Haskins the start. I was wondering what chance you give Mason Rudolph or Dwayne Haskins of eventually making this top Steeler quarterback list in terms of starts, wins, yards. My guess is that yards is most achievable, especially for Rudolph, example in 2 years of starting. And obviously he's got the quarterbacks all listed down here, attempts and yards. And look, I think it's way too early to be speculative. Let's see if either of these two guys can either start another game moving forward here. And
his point is, should they tank? Is what he's saying, right?
I guess in so many words, and my answer would to those kind of questions is always no.
Yeah, I'm not going to endorse that. That hurts your culture. It hurts you in so many ways than just potentially getting a guy that you may or may not end up liking, and who knows what his career arc is going to be like. And no, anti-tanking.
Yeah, me as well too. All right, that's a good jump off point there, Alex. If you already put a question in here, we haven't got back at you. Here's one. Alex, did you pull calf muscle? Alex, did you dig out yet? I guess all that snow you got. I'm enjoying all the mock draft articles you guys are writing up from outside sources. 2020. Anyway, compliment for Alex there. You can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. We might switch it up next week. Have a couple of guys, have a kind of a pre-Senior Bowl type powwow, if you will. That will probably be informational there. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, go to SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button, upper right navigational bar. Also, if you like an ad-free, or I said that, if you like to donate, hit the donate button, ad-free, hit the ad-free button. So until Monday, enjoy the football this weekend. As always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.